In an announcement that shocked, well, basically anyone who doesn't pay attention to theme park news, King's Dominion unveiled their plans for an all-new B&M launched wing coaster called Rapterra. Located inside the Jungle Xpedition section of the park, this coaster winds and weaves itself through the plot of land that once held Volcano The Blast Coaster. First thoughts, well, it's kind of hard to say because King's Dominion getting a wing coaster has been heavily rumored since 2020, maybe even as early as 2019. These types of attractions tend to be popular with the general public, and the launching aspect, which has only been seen twice with this model before by this manufacturer, will make this an even more appealing roller coaster. Thunderbird at Holiday World, I would consider to be its closest comparison, is a very solid wing coaster with great forces in a decent layout. Rapterra is touted to be the tallest and longest launched wing roller coaster in the world. At first I was puzzled because they're not including the fastest, and I was like, it's faster than Thunderbird? Well, I completely forgot about Furius Baco at Port Adventura. But back to the ride stats. Rapterra stands 145 feet, just beating out Thunderbird by 5 feet. The ride has a track length of 3,086 feet, which also barely passes Thunderbird by 51 feet. So yeah, it's scraping by with that record, which reminds me of Iron Gwazi. Anyways though, Rapterra features 3 inversions and a max speed of 65 miles per hour. All in all, the stats aren't too shabby, not a long coaster, but I wouldn't consider it to be a short ride either, basically right down the middle. The theming also looks to be decent. Continuing on with a jungle aesthetic, Rapterra will fit in nice next to Tumbili and Reptilian. I know the animation shows a lot of foliage and trees, but knowing the plot of land that this coaster is sitting on, I'm assuming those trees will be growing into the area, so the full landscape will not be visualized for a couple years. I like the stone arches that this coaster will be launching through before reaching that first element. The color scheme is a nice breath of fresh air. Just happy that Cedar Fair, Six Flags Entertainment, is not using red or orange rust color. Also, the name is very different. I think it will take some time to grow on me, but definitely better than Project 305 or Thunder Striker. Overall, this will complete the Jungle Xpedition area and will finally bring something to that awkward clump of dirt sitting alongside Reptilian. Now, let's get into the layout of this attraction, which is where I'm hearing mixed opinions. Of course, the obvious comparison would be Thunderbird, but I really don't think it pulls much inspiration from that coaster. In fact, I say it gathers more ingenuity from another recent B&M project, Pipeline the Surf Coaster. Overall, the ride has a decent mix of airtime and inversions. The first element, which is called a wing over, I think it will have some hang time as you rotate 180 degrees back to Earth. The inversions, starting with the dive loop, are the most uninspiring parts of the ride. I kind of find it humorous how every moment or element of this ride has its own unique name. First, the wing over, then the dive loop, followed by an S-turn, which leads into a wing slide. This is where I start to see the similarities with Pipeline. The S-turn is something found on Pipeline, and the wing slide is like one of their many turnaround elements also on Pipeline. It might actually be closer to that final banked airtime hill on Orion, or that weird outer banked hill on Candemonium. I think this is going to be the sleeper hit portion of the ride, instead of a typical turnaround. That pull-out maneuver looks to offer some airtime and laterals. The next element is a flat spin corkscrew, which is just a more fancy way of saying corkscrew. Okay, I know there's a slight difference, but for semantics' sake, it's the same thing. The ride finishes off with an airtime hill that leads into a Raptor roll, which is a fancy way of saying zero-G roll. It looks to be slightly off axis, so again, it will be slightly different, but yeah, the same thing. The most blasé part of the ride has to be the dive loop. I feel like every B&M roller coaster that has inversions will feature a dive loop or an immelman. The final 3 elements become dangerously close to what some would say phoning it in. I hear the complaints, but I still think this will be a fun part of the ride. Overall, I can see both sides. I see the typical B&M elements, but there are some new things here. I'm not entirely sure how that wing over element will feel, but I think it has potential. B&M has always been a manufacturer that takes changes in stride. I mean, look how long it took for them to start fully embracing the launch coaster. So yeah, speaking of the launch, which I haven't even talked about, this roller coaster will go from 0 to 65 miles per hour in about 4 seconds. This is a little bit slower than Thunderbird, which goes from 0 to 60 in 3.5 seconds. Basically, this will have a nice little punch to it. It'll be faster than Copperhead Strike, but yeah, it's not gonna knock your socks off or anything. Just a solid launch. But anyways, their attractions are designed to be crowd pleasers, and Rapterra will definitely fill that void. So my one major concern about Rapterra, it's not the layout, well maybe, but more about the roughness. It's no secret that I'm a little sour towards B&M after riding Iron Menace. It feels like their quality control has taken a step back. Even Pipeline had some rattle to it, but it wasn't as bad as Iron Menace. Also, I'm hearing reports that the new family coaster at SeaWorld, Penguin Track, has a rattle and even a rough transition going into the brake run. I also haven't been on it yet, but similar reports about Dr. Diabolical's Cliffhanger, wing coasters already feel prone to a rattle. Gatekeeper at Cedar Point used to give me a headache, but these past couple years I've noticed an improvement. The same is said about Wild Eagle at Dollywood, but I would argue that Thunderbird is pretty darn smooth, which is the one saving grace for Rapterra. I think that these shorter trains on the wing coaster model are smoother, which my hypothesis will be put to the test in 2025. So to kind of wrap up my thoughts here, I'm excited about this roller coaster, just not jumping on my couch excited.
Have you ever felt this way before?
The layout, which can't completely break free from typical B&M, still has enough originality to make this enticing. The theming and location will fit in nicely, and again, nice to see a roller coaster not red or orange. The launch, wing over, and wing slide, in my opinion, will be the best parts of the ride. Even the S-turn might have more bite to it than we'd expect, but all speculations will be put to rest next spring when we get to ride Rapterra for ourselves. So congratulations to King's Dominion on the announcement of their new roller coaster. Looking forward to celebrating your 50th anniversary. If it's half as good as the celebration at Kings Island, we're in for a real treat. Until next time, this is X Screen Thrills.